The Delta outbreak, questions about why we seem to be lagging so far behind the rest of the world in our rates of vaccination. Vaccines that save lives. Yes, we are now seeing record numbers of vaccinations each day, which is fantastic. But some say in the opposition that it's too late and the government dropped the ball starting the program. None of those hospitalised, according to News Hub, with COVID right now are fully vaccinated. None of them. And just 8 of the 34 have had one dose of the vaccine. So I asked our Prime Minister last Tuesday, after there was an increase in demand from people wanting a jab, why don't we order more? This was her response then. Will you order more vaccines? Have you picked up the phone like Scott Morrison has to Poland? He's got a delivery of 1 million landing this week. They're having mass events in Sydney at the moment as well.
We don't need more vaccine.
Jacinda Ardern is with us this morning. Morena, Prime Minister.
Morena.
Is that still the case, that we don't need more vaccines?
So I'm sure if you'd played the rest of the clip, Brian, what I was explaining is that we already have on order from Pfizer enough vaccine for every single New Zealander in the country, in fact, everyone in the country. The issue is, and it's the same issue that Australia has been having, is that the bulk of ours come in October. And so we've got this period of roughly 3 to 4 weeks where our supply is tight. So that's the period we're in at the moment. I have said that we are working to see whether or not we can meet the demand we have right now, while we, of course, wait for those bigger deliveries to come through into October, and that continues to be the case.
OK, so that is a change in position, because what I was asking you, Prime Minister, last week was, can we get some more so that we can keep up the demand that we're seeing, which is exactly what we want to see and what we've seen from other places around the world. Yeah. When Delta comes, people want to get the jab. Let's take advantage of that. I mean, I guess it's pleasing to see that we are moving on that we are trying to get more sooner.
Yes, and that's exactly, we are trying to do everything we can to meet the demand that we have right now. But I think the important point to still make is that even if we're unable to do that, which we are working very hard on, even if we're unable to do that, the worst case scenario is that we're still delivering 350,000 vaccines a week, because that we have enough supply in order to do that. And then, of course, in October, as I've said, that's when we get those very, very large shipments and all of those issues that we've had all the way through around it simply being about when it's delivered to us, that all moves aside. So it's the fact that right now we've had this surge, which is great. We want to be able to keep that up. We're doing everything that we can, but even the worst case scenario, it's not that we run out, it's just that we'll be running to plan, which is more like 50,000 a day.
How did we not see the surge coming, though? Happened everywhere else in the world. Why are we only now scrambling to try and get more sooner?
Well, no, again, Ryan, we've always said that our timeframes had us scaling up simply because our delivery schedule for Pfizer has always seen us receiving the bulk of our orders in the latter part of the year. So we've always had to build a program that was around when we would receive our doses. There's a similar but slightly different situation in Australia because they aren't receiving all of theirs from Pfizer. So their situation is a bit different. They're being trying to get more Pfizer because they don't have enough. They don't have enough for their whole population.
Are we trying other brands?
I'm not going to get into all of the detail of all of the options that we're working on, but it is fair to say that we are focusing on Pfizer.
Don't people deserve to know? Those people who are in hospital right now, unvaccinated with COVID, don't people deserve to know whether we're going to have options?
If I could just finish the answer to the question, what I was about to say was that we are working to stick to the Pfizer option because, yes, there are some alternatives that have been available to us, but it won't necessarily speed up the vaccination process because what we've done is build a system that is very specific to Pfizer. Different vaccines are sometimes delivered in different ways, provided in different ways, require different processes. And also, I do think the general population are keen to be able to access the same vaccines as perhaps other loved ones have. They're familiar with Pfizer. We know it's a very effective vaccine. So we've been very focused on seeing whether or not we can meet that demand with that supplier.
Okay. Because my sense of it is quite different. My sense of it is that people will have a vaccine. So long as it's considered safe by MedSafe, they'll have a vaccine.
Well, and we look at, again, it's not just a person's choice. It's also whether or not the challenges that rolling out 2 different vaccines at scale across sites whilst trying to keep down issues like human error and so on. There are a lot that goes on behind the scenes in preparation for delivering a vaccine and preparing the vials and so on. If you add that extra complication in, sometimes it may not make you quite as fast in your delivery. So there's a lot of things for us to weigh out. The supply chain is different. Of course, Pfizer, we know that we have to keep it at a particular temperature as it's delivered. So there are complexities that if you add in might make it more difficult. But again, we are doing everything that we can. I expect, Ryan, that we'll be giving an update across the course of this week, because that's when we'll need to make calls on what we do, given the limited supply that we have in country from Pfizer. Keeping in mind, we have over 800,000 doses at the moment, and we're getting over 300,000 every week. So again, we are not running out. It's just whether we can meet that extra demand.
Yeah, we'll have to scale it back in a couple of weeks.
The final thing I say, Ryan, you asked why didn't we prepare for this?
Yeah, why didn't we prepare for this surge?
A lot of the demand.
I mean, everywhere else it happened around the world, and we didn't have
Ryan,
surge capacity.
Ryan, I'm trying to answer your questions, my friend. So what we're seeing at the moment is not what you would expect in normal times, because we've got teams of people who otherwise would be in other parts of the health system. And also, we currently have broken through the peak delivery of almost everyone we would compare ourselves to. We've smashed the records of Canada, the UK, the US,
Yeah, but they were doing it months ago, Prime Minister. That's the difference, isn't it? That they were hitting their peaks months ago.
No, actually, you misunderstand my point, Ryan. The point I'm making is that we have broken their peaks. No one has had a peak like ours. No one. And that is in part because of the situation we're in. We're in a level 4 environment. So all of our health professionals are focused on things like swabbing. We've got extras on vaccination. So there's very few countries, in fact, I haven't seen any, that have had a surge like we have. And that is very much because of the environment we're in right now.
All right, Prime Minister, let's move on. Judith Collins copping a lot of flack for... I don't know if she drove or flew or what, but she's got herself to Wellington, and she's been heavily criticised for this because we are in level 4, although she's an essential service. Have you or have any of your staff or MPs, as far as you're aware, travelled between regions during level 4? I can think of one scenario, but it wasn't into Wellington or to a hotspot area, and it was a very specific scenario. So no, we haven't been bringing people into Wellington. But I will, to be fair to the Leader of the Opposition, no rules have been broken. She is designated as an essential worker, so is able to travel. The question for us was whether or not we could actually, as we've asked everyone, to find ways to do things that don't require travel, to work online if you can. We had, with the National Party, worked up an online option to replace question time, because that's the thing that we have been missing. We've still had select committees, but we haven't had question time. We came up with an online option. The National Party then rejected it, and that's why the House is now convening. I personally don't favour the fact the House is convening, but I feel like I have no option. What was that example you mentioned of one of your MPs or staff who travelled into region? It's a minister, and it was in order to access a secure facility for trade talks, and it was interregional, not into Wellington. Okay, that sounds quite reasonable. So a very good reason. Yes, indeed. All right, yeah. I want to play you a clip here. This is from Basir Ahmed, who is a man who has spent 4 years helping the New Zealand Defence Force in Bamyan province, who's now stuck in Kabul and worried for his life. We've just spoken to him, and I asked him if he had a message for you, Prime Minister. Have a listen to this.
I just only can say, please help us. And in the news report I saw, it says that they have evacuated some of the people who assisted New Zealand. We are the people who assisted New Zealand, and I don't know who they evacuated. We don't know who are those people.
Prime Minister, I'm conscious that might have been hard for you to hear. I've just got a transcript through from the producers here. Basir says, all I can say is please help us. In the news report, it said that some people who assisted the Defence Force were evacuated. I don't know who has been evacuated. We don't know who these people are. We are the people, he says, that should have been evacuated. What is your message to him? And are we sure that everyone we have evacuated who we believed helped the Defence Force are in fact those people? So 2 things. We know that we didn't get everyone out that we wanted to get out.
In fact, I would say that probably that's the case for every country who were undertaking evacuations. With the bombs that took place, there were actually 2 more flights that we wanted to undertake before we intended to complete that mission, and they were unable to be undertaken. So there is no doubt that we didn't get everyone. The latest number I have is that we did reach 390. The thing to keep in mind is that not all of those will have been people who supported New Zealand during the conflict, because some of them were actually visa holders and citizens and permanent residents who happened to be in Afghanistan when this all happened. So we had a range of people that we needed to help get out. New Zealanders, those who were in recent times issued or had visas processed to try and support them to get out. But as you will have heard us say, the people that we were seeking to support included those who work for the New Zealand Defence Force, included those who worked for other government agencies such as NZ Aid. So there were a range of people who will have qualified, and their immediate families. I can't tell you precisely the breakdown yet, Ryan, because not everyone's arrived in country yet. We're still processing some people because some people came in on partner countries' flights, not just ours. But when we've got that breakdown, we'll share it. But we did not get everyone out. The next step for us is what can we do to assist those that we weren't able to get out? We're working now on those options. It will be complex because, as you can see, we were reliant on security service provided by other countries, particularly the United States, who were on the ground. We took in 80 of our defence force, but there were literally thousands of troops keeping this site secure, and you can see why that was so necessary. So we will have to work with our partners on how we continue to support those we didn't manage to get home. But it is not the case that it's over for us. It's just we're going to have to change what we do next.
All right, and just finally, Prime Minister, the advice we're hearing this morning for those who are affected by flooding in West Auckland is to break bubbles if you have to, COVID rules in order to evacuate. Do you have any advice on this?
Yes, national emergencies override those COVID rules. So it's all about making sure that people are immediately safe. So if people do need to be evacuated, we understand that may lead to breaches in people's bubbles. If people are able to try and just keep up some of those basic things, like if they have their mask handy or what have you, then yes, please keep that up. But absolutely, a national emergency overrides. People just need to move quickly to keep themselves safe, and everyone understands that.
All right, Prime Minister, we thank you very much for your time this morning. As always, our Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, who's with us on Tuesday mornings. It is now 7 away from 8. Good news is next.
Well done for pushing on the vaccination question, because I'm sorry, I was just shaking my head during that. It was just more spin, excuses, and I'll take it. And now we've been said that we're slow because we all want the Pfizer. I'll take whatever is going to work. I'm sorry. And I'll take you right back to when we were told when there was a vaccination on the horizon, we'll be first in the queue for it. Well, we're far from first in the queue. And I will applaud this government for being quickly reactive. Right, which have there been. But that's not quality leadership. You've also got to show foresight, and that was lacking in this case.